Adesso vai su Skype.
Okay.
Mi metti full screen.
Can I start now?
Yes, I think we're broadcasting, so please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Dimeji Bankole, and I'm the Speaker of the Nigerian Parliament. I'm here to speak to members of the Italian Parliament on how elected leaders of the Parliament or government can assist in making sure that we achieve the Millennium Development Goals targets. Okay,
good evening. My name is Mario Barbi. I'm a member of the Italian Parliament, and I am a member of the Foreign Committee and of the subcommittee dedicated to the Millennium Goals in our Commission. So our conversation will be, as you said, about the achieving of the Millennium Goals. And my first question would be, how is the situation related to these targets in Nigeria?
thank you. As you're well aware, Nigeria is part of the signatory to the United Nations Millennium Declaration. And in consonant with our 7-point agenda and Vision 2020 economic policy, it's all integrated within the Millennium Goals targets for 2015. And we are also a beneficiary of the debt relief to the tune of about a reduction of about $18 billion from how much we owe, and the proceeds from that are being used to achieve the MDGs. But the first challenge we have really there is that in the past 3 years we've spent about $3 billion appropriated for MDG targets, whereas we need about $171 billion to actually meet up with the MDG targets for 2015. So that's the first obvious challenge for it. But in the short term, really, what we've done is to, in the National Assembly, establish a committee on Millennium Development Goals targets to begin to monitor implementation of all this debt relief gains into the actualization of the targets, so to speak. We've made some interventions in education, in health, but we have major challenges in cooperating with the state government, since we run a federal system in Nigeria, to make sure that we actually achieve those targets. If we can improve our relationship with the states, because the states spend about 50% or more of Nigeria's revenue. If we can work together with them and we can hit the targets together with us, then we can achieve some goals. Now, the factors that are assisting us to meet some of these targets has to do with the appropriation that is approved in the National Assembly. And these are in direct consonant with the strategic objectives and policy of state governments. In addition to that, like I said, the Committee on Millennium Development Goals in the Senate and the House of Representatives monitor the implementation of these targets. And of course, the Public Accounts Committee also ensures probity on it. But like I said, we have a major issue with the funding gap. At $1 billion a year that we're trying to meet with the limited funds from the gains of the debt relief, there's no way we can actually match the $171 billion required to meet those targets in 2015. And of course, a large amount of this $171 billion is coming from Nigerian revenue. But given the dysfunction on foreign direct investments in Nigeria, given the fact that trade relations between our country and the rest of the world, or should I say sub-Saharan Africa and rest of the world, has reduced from about 3% to less than 1% in the last 20 years, it makes it difficult for us to actually make serious gains. Because there's one thing getting relief through debt relief, if you like, but if serious trading barriers are not checked, there's no way we're going to be able to achieve those Millennium Goals in the long term. Of course, you also have the effect of the financial crisis and credit crunch that has effect on sub-Saharan Africa as well, which we're dealing with. Climate change, those major issues like that. And in some cases, political will from some parts of Nigeria as well is making a bit difficult for us to keep this target. So in the short term, we're taking off slowly, but we need to close that gap, like I said, that funding gap and assistance of other parliaments in the world and other major organizations, United Nations and the rest of it, to come to our aid. So in the short term, that's how far we've gone, without saying too much of specifics. But if I may too add, in education, for example, there's been a recruitment of about 90,000 teachers sent to rural areas in Nigeria to begin to make a difference in the level of education. Also, there's another figure of about 106,000 teachers who are going through retraining exercise to make sure that they can actually get this information passed to those people who will need it most. On the health side, I can give an example that about 700,000 pregnant women are being treated in order to meet the infant mortality rate reduction that we're seeking to do, given on one of the 8 goals of the Millennium Development Goals. Also, I can assure you that 62 million doses of vaccine were also provided for routine immunization for women and children as well. So those are the basic things I think we've been able to achieve and the problems we face as well. I hope I didn't speak too fast.
It's not too fast. It is the communication is not the best, actually. But just to go deeper to your answer, do you think are you happy with the internal governance and accountability?
I'm far from happy.
Far from happy. What do you mean with far from happy?
Well, on the accountability side, I would say that we've managed to do some things that have never been done in this part of the world until recently. The idea of the Committee on MDGs alone, and in addition to that, we've actually established an MDG resource center within the House of Representatives to keep us abreast of these targets and whatever we need to do to improve our capacity and able to appropriate accordingly to meet these targets, and to show more probity and more accountability in what has been done. But in the bigger picture, like I said earlier on, we were able to take advantage of gains from debt relief. But accountability in the big in revenue of the nation as a whole would assist us in meeting these MDGs. I'll give you an example. About a year ago, when we came on board in leadership of the Parliament, we found out that a large percentage of capital funds that were not utilized at the end of the year were not being returned into the Federation account. So we took on all these accounts and we were able to return about 80% of those funds that were not returned years before, and then roll it over to the next year to make sure that we can target MDG projects for them. Now, when I say 80% of the capital funds, you have to ask yourself, what was happening to those monies before we came on board? These are not small monies, that's $4.5 billion, for example, that could have disappeared from our system. So by the time we came to the next year, and the President was in full support of what we're doing in the National Assembly, on accountability, we didn't need to ask this question before they returned the money. The monies were returned automatically anyway, and we channeled back into our national agenda and policy directive that integrates with the MDG. So we are much better off as far as accountability is concerned between the National Assembly and the executive arm of government, and indeed corporate governance as a whole. So that is okay. At the same time, we're also trying to pass bills into laws in the House that will make sure that funds collected by government agencies are returned to the Treasury before appropriations concern. Now, we've also found out that about a third, I say again, a third of our national finances, revenue, are not returned into the Treasury when the civil service or civil servants collect this money on behalf of the government. So there's another bill which is in the House which is looking at that to make sure these funds are returned, and therefore we can actually hit the goal. So we need capacity building in form of accountability within the executive and the legislature to make sure that we can hit this MDG targets. These are things that we never looked at before. These are things that we never did before, but like I said, things are changing in this part of the world, and we're getting serious results, and I'm happy about that part. But a lot still needs to be done. Today in the House, for example, I will say to you that we passed the second reading of the law, of the bill, that is meant to establish the Government Accountability Office, or Government